Good morning, everybody. I am very excited to bring to you episode 2 of the Microsoft 365 Government Community Call. Today, we are very excited to bring Lisa Ruff from H3 Solutions and Councilwoman Roxy Ndebumadu, the Senior Customer Success Manager of Microsoft Federal, to talk about bots, local government, and interagency and cross-agency collaboration in the M365 platform just for you in GCC, GCC High, and DoD. As this is only our second episode, I'm just going to do another quick round table to a round robin to get everyone to introduce themselves. My name is Jay Leask. I'm Principal Solution Engineer from AvePoint Public Sector. I also run podcasts, Buzzkill IT podcast, and This Week in Teams. Why don't we go around the table? Sarah, I think you're next.
Yep. Hello, I am Sarah Gilbert. I am the Community Manager for the Microsoft Technical Community Public Sector.
All right.
Yeah, hey folks, my name is Rima Reyes, and I am a Principal Program Manager in Microsoft Teams Engineering, focusing only on federal government and DoD. Go Gov!
I'm Jeremy Wood. I work for the Millennium Challenge Corporation, federal employee, and also a podcaster like Jay. I have the podcast, The Geek Within, and I'm happy to be here today.
Hi, everybody. My name is Lisa Ruff, and I have the pleasure of being the VP of Sales and Partnerships for H3 Solutions, and I've been in the computer world for over about 40 years. Had the pleasure of working with Clippy when he first came out in my days at Microsoft, and who knew years later I'd still have the opportunity to work with bots and assistants.
Right.
Hi, everyone. My name is Roxy Ndebumadu. I'm a Senior Customer Success Manager with Microsoft Federal, specifically focusing on National Security Group. And I also happen to be elected on the local level in the state of Maryland. I'm glad to be here today.
Thank you, Roxy. Lisa, it's so great to have you guys with us. Rima, Jeremy, Sarah, I did it again. Didn't even do it on purpose. Rima,
Maybe
Jeremy,
that's why I wore
Sarah.
glasses today, so we could just fuse and be Sarah me, just to be one.
Oh,
Anyway.
it's a pleasure as always to speak with you guys. I'm just going to keep going. So this week, as we've shown you our format from last month, this week we're going to focus on a monthly news recap, a community Q&A, and of course, a list of community events that are going on specific to our government customers or government friends. You're not customers, all of you. You could be. That's a different conversation. I'm sorry. So let's start with the monthly news roundup. Jeremy, I think you wanted to start us about the App Bar.
Yeah, I'm very excited that the Sharepoint App Bar has finally shown up in our government tenant. I'm in GCC. Lots of possibilities there. Right now, no longer have to try to figure out how to get to SharePoint, right? Now you have, or to your intranet homepage. Once we get that configured, that'll even be better, that will be our intranet. So that, and I'm also very excited about noise suppression, and Microsoft Teams has now shown up in my tenant in GCC. Hopefully everybody's tenant, but it could be still rolling out.
Yeah. It's funny, we just had a conversation about noise suppression this morning. One of my coworkers actually has, on top of the Teams noise suppression, a software app, and we tested the combination of them. His wife was making smoothies in the other room, and without the noise suppression, you could straight hear every bit of grinding that was going on. And he put on the noise suppression, it all went away. So it's kind of amazing what the technology is doing these days.
Wow.
Right.
Anybody else have some news?
No, that's it.
Yeah, we're done. Podcast over.
I just want to say one thing too. So the managed app page in the Teams Admin Center has just shown up. It started, releasing on Thursday, April 6th, and so that's really exciting for folks who don't know what that is. Essentially, it allows Teams admins to go in and approve any sort of custom apps that have been published by the people that you've allowed to build custom apps, and it really streamlines the process of how users can submit and go through the publishing process for any sort of custom app in your Teams environment. And you can also allow and block other apps, like other third-party apps, if you wish. So it just gives you another greater granular level of security around how you build and manage apps in your environment in GCC. So exciting stuff.
Yeah, and Rima, the Microsoft team is pushing out a lot right now because bots, or not bots, but the custom apps are you can sideload in Teams. You've got all these capabilities that have recently rolled out. So this is another piece of that functionality growing.
Yeah, it's so exciting. I'm like, I get so thrilled with the stuff. I know it sounds so nerdy, but I love this stuff. So I'm pumped.
I'm really excited for the blog post to come out too.
That's like a hint. Let's get this done. Thank you. Yeah. Sorry.
And then Sarah, you brought a lot of news to the table. We want to start going through those.
Yes. Yep. Let's go down the list. Okay. So records and information governance. See, I messed that up again. Is now generally available in GCC, GCC High, and DoD. There was another article released. So both of these were released by Matthew Littleton. Another article was released on how to evaluate CMMC posture with Compliance Manager in GCC and GCC High. So Be sure to check those out. Another thing that I know Jeremy was just talking about being very excited for was Planner in Message Center. There's more labels that are coming for all government cloud customers. And you were saying you saw them already in GCC.
Yeah, the labels are amazing. The Planner for Message Center is really weird. I'll say that's really weird in terms of like how it goes and creates that planner from the Message Center. I haven't quite figured out if I want to use it or not, but it's an interesting feature, and it must be there because people ask for it. But the labels, the fact that I've been living with Planner forever with only 5 labels, and now I have more than I know what to do with, is just amazing.
It's like your Ariel in the Little Mermaid when like you're in that cave that she's got, and now you're just kind of like, look at this stuff, isn't it?
Jeremy, I was going to ask something really quick. I think you had just mentioned this about the Message Center syncing to Planner. Is that what you were referencing?
I was.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. We have a lot of government customers that use that just to kind of funnel some of those Message Center posts outside of the admin center and bringing it into Planner so that they can share that information with other people. And so I know a lot of customers who actually use that. They really like that. That way they can kind of spread the message without them being kind of the bottleneck or the stopgap for that. So that's cool.
That's true. Although I know nobody here is from that team, but I would congratulate the people who put out the Message Center notifications, because now they're starting to link to the roadmap.
Ooh, nice.
For each of those Message Center things. And that means I could just forward the email notification I get to somebody else in my organization, say, hey, you care about this. And there's the link directly to the roadmap, not a link back to the admin center, which was always kind of a pain.
Awesome. And then the next 3 things that we have Microsoft Intune in GCC and GCC High Overview, plus CMMC applications. It was a webinar that was done by Matt Sozman in partnership with Summit 7 at one of their conferences, and we have it up on the blog. It was recorded. He did a demo as well, so be sure to check that out.
And they have another CMMC webinar coming out next week or the week after?
I believe next week.
Yeah.
Or
we'll
make
sure to post the link. You don't have to.
Yeah, we will. And it's gonna that one will include. It's gonna have Katie Arrington. Hope I'm pronouncing that right. She's gonna kick it off. And then it's also going to have beloved member Richard Wakeman, as everybody knows, as well as a member from our active tech community and Reddit community, So his username I know is Ribo3000.
Let's just go with that. I like it. Ribo3000 keynoting.
But his actual no, he's not keynoting. But his actual name is Ryan Bonner. But yeah, every time I just remember his username first because I'm like Ribo3000, like this machine upgrade.
I love it.
Exactly right. And there's the Azure Government webinar came up as well. They have their recordings on their YouTube channel. Their last one was From Code to ATO, How to Accelerate Deployments in Government. And then the meetup group for Microsoft 365 Meetup for Government. Their Power Up Microsoft 365 with Power Platform. That was recently released with their recording, and that group is run by Nick Giard. And their presenter for that was Stephen Winward.
And we'll post links to all of these as soon as I can get those links. We'll make sure those post today. And we've got a few more community events that we'll talk about towards the end of the thing. When it comes to the news from the past month, I'm going to put Roxy on the spot here. Roxy, is there anything that particularly excites the customers you're working with regard to some of the stuff that's come out here?
I think most of the things that the customers that I'm working with are working on are around really the bots and a lot of the stuff that's going on with platforms. So that's what's exciting to them right now. I think with Teams, everyone, that the excitement period for Teams and Teams meeting has been going on and on and on through COVID. But right now it's really that whole thing with Power Platform of, oh, we can do this. And these bots, the different types of bots and how they can integrate that into their environment. And I know we're going to get there soon, but that's the most exciting for my customers.
Yep. Yeah, it's absolutely the conversations we're having. We've at AvePoint, we always have migration conversations. We always have some security-based conversations, but more and more Power Platform, Power Automate, figuring out new ways to do workflows. These are the conversations we're hearing the most. So I agree that anytime we get an update to the Power Platform, especially in the GCC and higher tenants, it's lots of excitement comes out with it.
And manage apps too. I will say manage apps was a really big deal. So the Rima speaking to it in the beginning was perfect because it's been people have been beating us down for that one. So that's a big deal.
Yes. She and I know specifically, there's one customer that I'm thinking of, and by the way, it was Roxy's birthday this week. So I was on a call and it was her day off. But I will say on the customer call, the customer was just so relieved. They're like, wow, thank goodness, we've been waiting for, it was the pressure. You could see the room was just deflated. And I was like, wow, it's amazing how one admin center change could make such a huge difference. So she knows exactly who I'm talking about.
So Rima, this is a pretty good transition to the community Q&A. The first question that really came out in the community Q&A and it ties directly to everything we just talked about is, why am I as an individual not seeing the same features that another individual is seeing? Jeremy, I think we talked about this last month. There was a feature that came out that you didn't see yet, but it was supposedly available. And so Rima, we want to talk a little bit about the process that goes into these releases and why sometimes it takes a little extra time.
Yeah. And it's, having switched to engineering 2.5 years ago, it was really interesting, peeling back the onion and kind of understanding how Microsoft builds products and how it does its release cycle. And so I know we're going to post a blog link, a reference blog link to what I'm talking about right now. So I'll summarize it. But essentially in Teams, whenever we build a feature, we have to make sure that the underlying service and also dependent architectures are there first. And then we also attach feature flags in the product. So meaning, hey, turn on this button or turn on that thing so that somebody can see it. Then obviously we have to go through accreditation as well for said feature. So not everything has to go through accreditation, depends on what it is. Whiteboard was something that has to go through accreditation. But once it passes, accreditation and authorization, then we start releasing it through our rings, through our GovCloud rings. And so first it goes through commercial, and we've got several rings, deployment rings in commercial. So it'll start out small. So the first one is dev, which is internal to us. And then we've got, internal Microsoft Elite ring. And then it starts going through, other TAP programs customers that sign up for, hey, we want early beta releases of things. And then once it's gone through commercial, it'll start hitting the GovCloud. So why we do that is because we want to make sure Gov gets a good product, number one. And number two, we want to make sure that we've also tested and gone through all of the bugs first through the previous rings in commercial. And then the final piece, too, of all of this is that in Gov, what we're seeing specifically is that the client is really, really important. So making sure that the Teams desktop client is the latest and greatest to make sure that it corresponds with the underlying service and feature flags that have been turned on so that you see everything. So we've noticed that a lot of Gov customers tend to slow roll releases just because that's what they're used to. And
caution.
Sometimes
just caution.
Just caution. It's a little risk averse, right? Yeah. In Teams, we always say, hey, we want to take care of that for you. So we try to make sure, hey, whatever, update that we're releasing is going to match our feature release timeline. And so it's really important to also have that latest and greatest client, because it's going to match with that. So if you have an older client, sometimes that can affect whether you see or don't see something. And so making sure that everybody is also on the same client version is really, really key. So if you haven't done so, if you're an admin, just make sure you do an inventory to see what versions of the client that everyone's in, just to make sure that everybody's up to date there. And then the final thing.
Hold on. I got to take a note.
Yeah. You got to take it
out. The version.
Yeah.
All right, keep going. Keep going.
And then the final thing I was going to say too is that sometimes when we release a new service, that underlying service I was talking about, your account should be like refreshed, on the system. But let's say you're still seeing like a difference, like Jeremy, you were describing, hey, you were seeing something different than your fellow, teammate. Make sure that you sign out and sign back in, because when you sign out and sign back in, it refreshes you across all of our services. And sometimes, there's just a lag, or sometimes your account hasn't been picked up yet to get that update. And we don't update like by tenants per se, we update by user. So that's something really important to know, that if you want to make sure that people see the latest, greatest things, because we're changing things, updating things all the time, have the latest client, make sure you sign out, sign in, and hopefully you all should be good to go. So.
Rima, you said something interesting there. You said a lot of things interesting there, but you said something that really sparked something in my. You said you don't update by tenant, you update by user. What does that mean? Like to the non-app?
Yeah, so a lot of times people say, oh, like, don't you take chunks of tenants and say, okay, we're going to go through and like give them the latest and greatest feature. And that's not really how we see it in engineering. We actually see it just as a massive user. So we actually go through users through, whatever account that they have, like in our Gov clouds, and then we give them those refresh services. So sometimes you'll see like a day difference between somebody that sits in your tenant might get something in the morning, and maybe the rest of the tenant gets it at night, right? Mm-hmm. So it just depends. So as we kind of push things out, it can take up to a couple of weeks for people to see things when we announce something has been released as well. Because we have to, GCC is so big right now that it takes a while to release everything to everybody.
Can I recommend reverse alphabetical?
I just have to tell you, I'm remembering when the new versions came out in the 90s, and how people got updated was we'd send out a CD,
Oh,
so
CD, floppies.
Yeah. So I'm just like going, wow, I love the changes that have happened over time.
Yes. Yeah. No more 5.5, no more like 10 packs of 5 1/4 inch discs that we're walking around. Oh man, now, Rima, I really appreciate that. I hope the blog that we're sharing here is particularly helpful. And frankly, this is the kind of thing where generally end users don't pay attention to this kind of information, but it's clearly valuable in being able to lower the amount of stress and frustration that may come when you're hearing someone has something and you don't know why you're not getting it. So if you're an admin listening to this, check out the blog and consider at least sharing information from it, if not the article itself. I think it's the kind of read that helps everybody. So thank you for that, Rima.
Wow, that's really good. Hey, I want to ask the next question because I love this topic.
Yeah.
And so, especially since Lisa's here, and Lisa and I recently, she was a guest for my user group, and we had this conversation. Why do we care about bots in GCC? Now, I know Roxy was saying everybody's very excited about it, but why do we care about them?
How about I take that? So, you know what, Jeremy, I think I might do a quick little level set. I know there are a lot of people excited about bots, but I think there are a couple of folks who might still not be sure what a bot is, even though everybody goes shopping on a web page. But just for like a quick little level set, thinking about a bot, a web bot or a chat bot, it's basically a software application. And this now has a conversational interface. So you see them on websites, you see them in social media, and yay, now that third-party apps are available in GCC, we'll see them in Microsoft Teams. And really the goal for a bot is to provide responses that help people get the information that they need and get a task done when they need it, and they need it quickly usually. And typically these are tasks that are repetitive. So you ask, why do we care? Why do we need bots? And there's so much opportunity for a bot to help with citizen services. People are busy with their day jobs, and people are busy taking care of children. People are busy taking care of parents. And you know what? Sometimes you can't, call somebody or access something from the typical 9 to 5 zone. So if you think about it, a bot's available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. So it's really there to help people, find out, how do I renew my driver's license at 10 o'clock at night? And, how do I report that street light that's been out at 2 o'clock in the morning when I can't sleep? So those are kind of the things that we look at. Why do we care about bots? And some of the other cool things is with the latest no-code platforms that are out there, bots are making it really inexpensive. The no-code bot platforms are making it really inexpensive to create the bots. It doesn't have to be a very lengthy and expensive process of just building one bot. And organizations could also leverage the investment that they've made in the Microsoft Cloud. So, at the end of the day, what does it do? It really reduces the burden on the employees. They can cut back on the menial tasks that they have to do and really focus on some of the innovative things and other critical projects that they're working on. And the other thing is, those massive amount of emails can go poof because people can get, access to the information that they need right away through a bot. So, yeah, I mean, those are the kind of things that I hear, what we see. I live in the bot world day in and day out as to really why people, should care about bots.
Yeah, it's been really interesting to see the explosion of bots as on the commercial side. And honestly, the number, I speak at the M365 conferences, the community conferences, SharePoint Saturdays or whatever, a lot over the last couple of years. Jeremy, I know I've seen you there a bunch. And the number of presentations on low code and no code presentations as well, like that whole concept of citizen developer, the concept of trying to remove the number of repetitive tasks that we're doing, and the fact bot, the concept of taking information that you are answering all the time and putting it somewhere that anybody can do a quick, not just a search, but an interactive conversation, which is much easier to conceptualize than, okay, I'm going to go to Google and I'm going to search for this and I'm going to look at 20 results and nope, that wasn't right. I have to refine what I typed. And yeah, Lisa, I love your.
You want to ask a question and you want to get the answer.
That's right.
All of us come from SharePoint, or not all of us, but I think a lot of us come from SharePoint backgrounds. Search is wonderful, gives you a lot of information, but sometimes we all want to ask a question and we want to get the answer. So that's just one of a great way from a bot perspective.
So if you're okay, that makes a good bot, but then or that is why we care about bots. What makes it a good bot? I mean, is it that it's fact driven? Is it? I mean, is it what? I mean, it could be a lot of things, right? But from your perspective, since you are the bot expert here today, what makes it a good bot?
Well, again, the fact bots are good, but I think what we're finding nowadays, they're not good enough. So they're really, what we talk about when I think about is I talk about the 3 key elements that help breathe life into a bot. So what makes a good bot? The first thing is you want to have a bot that should understand what you're asking it. It should know the information to provide to you, a la the fact bot, and then it actually should do what you need it to do and request it. So if we dig a little bit deeper into that, if you think about for understanding what you're asking the bot to do, think about the many ways you can say something, and that something is your intent. So what it is the user wants to do. For example, your intent is take vacation. How many different ways can you say that? Simply, I want to take a vacation. Or how many times in the federal government, what do we say? I need to apply for leave. I want to apply for leave. So how does a bot understand what you're saying? So what we look at is the technology that enables that is AI, natural language processing, natural language understanding. And in the Microsoft stack, the technology that helps to understand that is LUIS, which is the language understanding, I always forget the I, language understanding intelligence service. Yep. So that's a part of the Azure AI stack. The second area that we talked about, which is very key, the fact, is for it to know what you're asking it. there needs to be a good base of knowledge that can provide you with that information. How do I file a permit? What is this month's Wi-Fi password? So typically what you're looking at is a good knowledge base, something that underlies that, that's, easy to access, easy to maintain. And again, in the Microsoft world, we talk very heavily about Q&A Maker. So that's a great platform. And then the last thing is the do. So we had the understand, the know, and the do is, again, you want the bot to act on your behalf, actually help you fill out that form to file a permit. Or, after you figure out what the Wi-Fi password, you might find out that your monitor's not working. So how do I go ahead and, ask my IT for help or get the help automatically? And what we're looking at there is workflow engines. Everybody, one of the latest acronyms is RPA, Robot Process Automation. And again, because I love the Microsoft world, it's the Power Automate and Logic apps. So, those are the things, that help fulfill it. And one thing I want to make sure I didn't really get to say before, I think a lot of people are scared that, a bot is going to take away their job. It's not. The bot is really there, again, just to help automate things. So bots are we have the New Yorker comics that I look at every morning. And one of them, it's the year 2046. And the guy a robot is handing a box to the last human and say, you can now go binge watch what you want. No, bots and robots are not here to take away the jobs. They're just here to enable, the support services for citizens. So I hope that makes sense.
Bot and they think it's the Terminator. So
yeah.
Right.
I've had to explain that to people too, where they're like, I don't want it doing things for me like that. I'm like, what do you think this does? So
I think those are important. That's an important thing to point out. I know, in the RPA world, that is the concern for many employees, but I know many government agencies have dived headlong into RPA to do so many of those repetitive, mundane tasks like processing invoices or, receipt of information and then digitizing it into a database someplace instead of somebody having to hand type it. So no, I think there's a lot of good that can be done there.
Hey, Lisa, do you guys have a link that we can, like a blog that talks about all of this, something we can link to that would be good to follow up a little deeper on that?
I've got lots and lots of links
and they will show up in the chat right about the moment she says that.
everything from the implementing with Q&A Maker or ideas for good bots in anything from commercial to government organizations. And so, there's a lot. Yes, I got lots of information.
Cool. And then Roxy and Rima, you guys are working directly with government customers. Where are you seeing their interest on this topic?
There's one thing I want to add before I answer that question. When Lisa was talking, I want to just kind of draw a clear picture for people. A lot of people, when they do hear about bots, they think about, like everyone said, that it's going to take over their job. But when you put that into context, most of these government agencies, whether that's federal, state, or local government, they have services that they provide to constituents, or they have services that they provide to their customers. And what a bot does is enable them to be able to provide those services at a quicker turnaround rate. So without the bot, what ends up happening is that things just fall through the cracks and the services just end up declining. So it's not like somebody picks up the task. It's just that the service declines. And then what happens is either the constituent is frustrated or the customer is frustrated. If you take an example like housing and urban development, housing and urban development works with community block grants for local governments. And they also work with housing loans for the average constituent looking to buy a home. Now, when you think about applying for that home loan through FHA or any other organization that HUD works with, sometimes that takes about a 190-day turnaround for you to hear back as a normal constituent or for your loan to be processed. Now, what a bot does is help speed that automation process up on the back end for all the people that need to go through those approvals or all the things that need to happen to make sure that that loan is processed in a quicker turnaround time. Or if you think about a community block grant, community block grants are processed to state and local governments or county governments. Community block grants are usually large sums of money that help. Like, so for example, with the American Rescue Plan that was just passed a couple of weeks ago by President Biden allocated certain monies for counties and local municipalities. So what ends up happening is that HUD will disperse a community block grant to those municipalities, whether that's a sum of 4 million, 2 million, 10 million, 16 million, it can range. Now, what ends up happening is sometimes that takes a really long time. So if I'm a municipality that's suffering from the cost of buying PPE or different things to protect my constituents against COVID, what happens is that now backs me up in my backlog. And now I have to look at either raising taxes or going to other avenues to supplement the money, because we don't have things like bots to automate those processes to make sure that things happen at a quicker turnaround rate. So I wanted to put that into perspective for people who may not understand the real world scenarios of how bots are actually really helpful. Now, to go back to your questions in terms of what bots customers are actually interested in, for my customers in particular, the most exciting ones, and I'm kind of partial, but the most exciting ones are the HR bot, specifically focusing on the HR department. So Lisa talked about this a little bit. When people want to take leave or when they're getting ready to retire, or all of those types of questions around things that happen around human resources or an organizational structure, then you have this HR bot that you would be able to basically ask those questions and it would respond back to you and with those direct links or guiding you through the process of how you need to submit something. Or like student loan reimbursement. You'd go through the bot, you'd ask the bot like, hey, I need to submit for my student loans to get reimbursed by my company. Basically, the bot will walk you through the process that the organization has. Because sometimes that information is so embedded deeply in a SharePoint site somewhere that me as a normal employee, I can't find it. Like, you know what I mean? And it becomes a frustrating experience. The other one that I'll add is the Q&A bot. The Q&A bot just all up in terms of where I've seen it be most popular in the federal government is when people are deploying teams. So when people are deploying teams, a lot of customers will come in or end users will say like, how do I start a team? What's the difference between guest access and external access? How do I add an external person to my team site? Can I do that? What are the restrictions in place for us? Those are the types of things that end up speeding up the process, because what happens is that the help desk gets inundated and we don't want that, because we want the help desk to be happy. So
And to follow on to that what's cool, I mean, I will say that IT services is probably the number one, regardless of whether it's commercial, state and local, or government. But when we go back to what makes a good bot, again, the fact, how do I do that is great. But think about starting to integrate it with IT help desk systems or support systems, so that whether it be Dynamics or whether it be ServiceNow, I'm replacing not only, there's a question whether it's tier 0 or tier 1. Tier 0 gives you the answer. Tier 1 can actually kick off the process of, I do need a human to help me. And it will start off the process to open the support ticket, put it into, connect, thank you, to Flow and to all the great, I used to be technical, the technology stuff in the middle, that connects it can create that service request for somebody, notify them, they could look it up and go ahead and give the answer. And sometimes it might even be closed automatically. So it's that, taking that to the next step.
Wow.
There's a lot. That was a lot to take in. And I really appreciate your examples, Roxy. It was fun to dig in on the practical uses too at the state and local level and integration with the federal. Like, I don't think most people think about that sort of thing. So hopefully some of our listeners are getting ideas for how they might want to start moving forward. So let's do that. Let's talk about how do we move forward. A lot of what I hear with regard to bots, I hear about Power Virtual Agents. How, like, that's not available yet, and I don't know if there's a roadmap date for us. What can our government customers look to use to be able to move forward? Open question.
Well, Microsoft underlying technologies are all there. That's great. You have the ability to create a bot in Q&A Maker. You have the ability to create a bot in Lewis. There are platforms such as mine, AvePoint, which is the ability to create a no-code, low-code bot that stitches together all of these different technologies. So it's not siloed. There's an order of operations there, and I have a blog on order of operations too. There's an order of operations as to how this all occurs. So, and we are available with regards to adding third-party apps, and I invite customers to always look at what's available and test out what's best for them. So when PVA is available in GCC, make sure you still continue to test out AppBot that's there too. But, I think there are a lot of key blocks that are there. And today I invite folks to give AppBot a try in terms of testing it out.
I mean, as a software vendor, I completely understand where you're coming from. I like the reminder that you can build a bot using Lewis and using Q&A Maker today. Like, you don't need PVA to get there. But if you're looking to simplify things, there are companies out there like you, in this case, like us, when it comes to backup or migration or governance. Like, there are companies out there that are taking the pieces that Microsoft's putting on the back end and stitching them together to make it easier. So I totally understand the reference there. That's a good reminder.
And I will say, as a government person who purchases services and has already looked at Power Virtual Agents, you should definitely look at AppBot, because the price point is a significantly different price point. So, and I think Power Virtual Agents is going to be available sometime this summer, which is great. So you can look at it. But if you're a small agency like me, you may not be able to even afford it. So, there are a lot of pros and cons we have to make, or trade-offs we have to make in agencies that don't have the large budgets, right? Over what functionality and features will turn on. And so at least AppBot will give you an opportunity to evaluate an option that works very, very well, but is also less expensive.
Jeremy, as a government employee, you've done a lot of evaluation on costs. So you mentioned licensing. I think there's additional cost for like natural language processing licensing and such. What other kind of, what are your thoughts on the pros and cons there? Is I don't know if you've done this kind of research, but is there a break-even point where it makes more sense to do one than the other?
I don't think so. I think the larger challenge for those of us in government is every time we do procurements, they're supposed to be competitive. I'm not supposed to be. Let me caveat that they are competitive, and that makes it challenging for me to then go acquire something if So let's look at Azure's cognitive services as an example. I actually don't have Azure services available to me today. So I need to figure out then, how do I procure that?
Gotcha.
How do I procure that and still be competitive? How do I work with my contracting office to make sure that they understand my requirement is I want it to work within my existing Microsoft environment, and therefore this is the better approach. And so you got to work through all the FAR issues and the regulations to make sure that you're above board in what you're trying to do, but still getting it accomplished. So I think the larger challenges for government always are around how we procure stuff, more so than comparable costs against solutions. I mean, we do compare costs against solutions,
sure,
but we don't really look at it from like a break even, because we can't easily pick one over the other. There is a competitive process there.
And Jay, this goes back to, again, the no code, low code type of environment, because we don't look at some of the, I don't want to say soft costs, but what does it cost for the hours of a developer to build something? Yep. So again, while you might already own Azure and have Lewis, Q&A Maker is that all of these things are broken down into what the prices are to support it. The bot framework is the core piece, but yes, you might be procuring a piece of software that helps you to build it, but what is the cost of that and the usage versus developing it from scratch and paying for a developer? And think about other things, change management.
Yes.
When you're paying for a platform that has an administrative panel that allows you to administer and manage who works with bots and all those things, that you don't have to touch everybody else's. When you're developing software from scratch, and you have to change something, there's that whole change management aspect. So that's the cost of usage, the cost of development.
That's a good point, because we do that assessment. We're required to do cost analysis before we get into a procurement situation, because we need to be able to provide the agency decision makers who agree to the investment that to show we have looked at the alternatives and the options available, and this is what we think is the best thing in this area. We got to be generic. We can't say this company stuff is the best, but this approach is best, and this is the generalized cost for that approach. And I would say all government agencies are supposed to be looking at cloud services first, right? Not building it ourselves. And so the more vendors that have these solutions that are low code or no code, they are definitely going to be higher in the range of what we purchase versus building it ourselves.
I just wanted to add something to that too. I was talking to a customer yesterday, and they said there were some new executive orders around doing what was used to be like an in-person paper process to now do that remote. And it seems interesting that now like agencies are being forced to kind of go that route. And I know bots are going to be a big part of that picture to help with that process. So basically federal government and also local government can still serve the community in a timely manner, kind of tying back to what Roxy was saying. So.
All right.
Even just to add to that, actually, you'll learn something interesting about my background. So one of my first jobs was actually in a bank because my father's a banker. Hey, Dad. So I actually have seen the full-on loan process from start to finish, and it is intense. There was a lot of paper. There was a lot of process. I was a clerk. So you had to I had to go to like 8 different offices just to help them with like one loan in a stack of files they had on their desk. I'm 35 now, so I did this job when I was maybe 18. And, like the stack on their desk this high that they have to get through and evaluate. It's not an easy job. It's arduous, and there's so many hours there. If they could do anything to cut back on those hours that they put in to make their lives more efficient, they would do it, because I've seen all of the work that any loan officer, anybody working in a bank does just on a single loan, even in as a commercial loan or personal private loan. I've seen all of those, which right now I believe my dad is working on some of the loans for small businesses for the government. So yay. But it's a lot of freaking work. So it's awesome that bots can help with that. They need all the help they can get.
Yeah.
And bots, the design of this new application, bots are built to be friendly. You're there to guide people. It's a little bit more, it's all these things that are growing up. Bots are Clippy grown up, and adaptive forms or adaptive cards in Microsoft are forms that are grown up. They're there to help you along, to guide you. And you know what? We build into all the bots, thanks to Q&A Maker and other things. You can ask it, have a nice day, or tell it, have a nice day, or how are you today? Or, put in as much as you want. So it's just all the evolution of efficient applications, and bots just definitely automate, but are also there to help.
Yeah.
I mean, all this conversation around bots and how it's making things more efficient. I'm gonna transition here. This is how I'm making our transition happen. It does then beg the question to Roxy. Then, in generalized efficiency, how have you been working with the city of Bowie to modernize since COVID started?
Before I answer that, transition. But I'm gonna just 1 second. I just want to add one thing. Also, just in perspective, the other side of that, it's also helping with retention. I think people also forget that there are multiple generations in a workforce right now, and different people like to work in different ways. Some people like more of the instant gratification side, where if they ask a bot a question, it immediately responds to them and they immediately get responses in that way. Or some people like to be able to go do digging for that information on themselves. Some people like to automate their workflows. It's really helping different people who like to work in a particular way be able to work in that way, because this idea of retention, this idea of making sure that an organization is able to have the best talent and provide them with the resources that they need to be able to be successful in their job. Part of that is automation, so that they can get things done quicker and be more efficient and focus more deeply on the areas that they want to focus on and that need more human attention, is part of that general bigger strategy. And so when you're thinking about the federal government, who is having a difficult time, I mean, think about organizations like USDS and others that were formed, or 18F and et cetera, who are trying to help with the federal government retention and attracting the best and the brightest. These are some of the technologies that as a federal government that people need to think about adopting to be able to continue to drive that mission forward. So I just wanted to add that in there too. Okay, helping the city of Bowie modernize. What I love about the city of Bowie is we've got a fantastic IT director. His name is Todd. And Todd's been really doing a great job reimagining the way that we run legislative hearings, because I think every type of governing body is very different. But for us, we focus more on legislation and the hearing aspect of life. So being able to involve our constituents in the process and still be able to pass resolutions, pass legislation, invite other people in, and maintain the integrity and the security of our environment with the confidentiality of the information that we're sharing is really a big deal for us. And so for those of you who aren't familiar, pretty quickly after COVID jumped off, the city of Bowie adopted Teams. We did all of our hearings through Teams. We really leveraged kind of like that whole aspect of Teams with external access, guest access, all of that. We have different committees that also run different types of legislation as well. And so all of our committees adopted Teams. So that was getting our external kind of stakeholders in the community to get on Teams and also be more collaborative through that mechanism. Because when you're looking at municipal government, you're thinking about people that are in a certain demographic that may not be the most advanced with technology. So what Teams did is make it really easier for people to collaborate in one space and be able to really like kind of have that knowledge sharing and that exchange of ideas to be able to be more efficient for constituents. What's really great about that is that throughout the state of Maryland, there are a lot of different other people like the different counties' offices, as well as the state's office that are using Teams as well. So it just makes that experience a lot easier from a collaboration perspective. Like next week, I've got a meeting with the Secretary of Transportation for the state of Maryland to talk about transportation issues in the city. And the fact that we're both on Teams and the fact that we're both familiar with the experience just makes that a lot easier and it makes it a lot better. And it also instills this idea and level of integrity that we are not going to either get like photobombed or nothing's going to disrupt the flow of our experience. So that's a really good one. The other areas that we were focused on that has less to do more so about like the collaboration aspect is like every municipality after things that happened in the most recent event, cybersecurity. That's a big deal for us because we really want to be able to protect our constituents and also protect the information that we have that keeps the city continuing to operate. And for us, we are the third largest city in the state of Maryland with 70,000 people. So it's a pretty big city. And so it's definitely been a challenge, but we're doing really, really good in terms of going to a lot of the conferences and making sure we're attending the different conferences that are going on so that we can continue to update ourselves on the technology. We've also begun an effort to train all of our internal employees and upskill them as well in different areas of technologies that they're comfortable learning about. So we want to dispel this idea that you have to be a developer or a coder to be able to do certain things or to be able to create a bot. And so we've developed other upskilling initiatives to make sure that people are assisted in that learning. So it's been exciting.
That is really cool.
I want to say, like, I live in Maryland, and I am so thankful that we have people like Roxy, like, leading the state of Maryland and leading. I don't live in Bowie. I wish I did, because I feel like it would be a better place, obviously, because Roxy's there. So I just want to say thank you for your service, your government service. I know, Jeremy, like, you too. I mean, but I want to say, like, Roxy, I know you do this out of, like, love and pain and passion, and you do it in your spare time. And I mean, it's amazing. I don't know how you do it. Like, kudos to you for having, you have your Microsoft job, which is also insane. And then you have your city government job. I mean, it's amazing that anyways, I just want to say thank you. So
yeah. I was going to say the one thing I will add that I forgot to mention, and one, thank you all so much, because it's definitely a different life being a civil servant. I'll just leave that there. Jeremy knows what I'm talking about, but I will say it makes it a lot easier. I think a lot of people don't necessarily know how much municipal government, county government, and federal government collaborates and works together on so many different things. Like, it all trickles down and then it all trickles up. Like, it's an up and down roller coaster where we have to be able to work together. Specifically in our city, we have our own police force. So the police force is under the city. And so when it comes to cases or when it comes to investigations, there are often times where we have to work with some of those three-letter agencies and things of that sort to be able to protect our community the way that we need to. And so technology is really what keeps a lot of this collaboration and a lot of this efficiency going forward, where we don't have to go back and forth on email. We don't have to rely just on that. We don't have to necessarily wait around for the answers that we need to be able to serve our community better.
Yeah. So I'm curious, and this may have been before your time with the city, or maybe it's something that you've assisted with, but how do you convince your local government leaders like Todd to begin that management process, to begin that upgrade process, the concept of, look, we have to do this. It's going to give us all of these benefits that you've mentioned. It's going to enable us to work with our partners, work with other agencies, et cetera. How have you seen that conversation?
That conversation is actually relatively the easier one, to be honest with you. The easier one, because when you think about municipal government, I'm not saying that there isn't a lot of restraint there, where people, there are some examples of people who are a little bit more stuck in their ways and do want to do things a particular way because they've seen that that's been proven successful for them over time. But I think also taking into account that times are also evolving and continuously changing, and that the environment that we're in today, we never have been in before. And so we're fortunate in our city that we do have leaders like Todd who are proactively always seeking outside knowledge. And then we also do have an IT committee, like a council, that also advises Todd as well. So most municipalities have structures in place, like where we have committees for different things like education, IT, et cetera, and I liaison that committee as well. So we have a ton of people who do work for federal government that are at Navy, House of Reps, and things like that live in our city that advise them that advise Todd from that perspective to be forward thinking and encourage him. And so that's the good one. I think what the difficult aspect of it is more like when it's time to pay for the same thing over and over again. That's the one that's a little bit more common. The duplication of services, people are because the way that most government entities think, I see this example with my customers all the time, and I see it in the city. Well, such and such that we need to partner with likes this technology. So we're going to go buy that technology. So because such and such likes it. So we're going to use it too. But then everybody else can use this. And then when such and such talks to such and such, you use that one. And I don't think that they understand the environment that it creates for the actual end users, because they look at it from the perspective of, oh, our partners like this technology, so let's go buy all this duplication. So not only are we wasting taxpayer dollars, let's put that in hindsight, but then on top of that, we're also just creating this whole idea around IT sprawl that's ridiculous, that your data is no longer managed in one central location. And it's all over the place. So you really don't know what's out there in the ether, and you're just kind of like signing off to whatever. But then you also have end users who are now confused, saying, well, what am I supposed to do? What am I supposed to use? If you're saying that this is my solution, and then it feeds all these things, like I can, work with AppBot, create bots, and if it, modernize this, and I can migrate my data here, and then this is going to be a better experience. But then you start inviting duplicate things in. Now I'm confused. I don't want to modernize anything. I'm not going to collaborate on anything because it's just too much disparate types of technologies. So that's the more common one.
It's like a type of overwhelm. It's what do they call it? It's like where it's like too many options to where you're just kind of overloaded, and you're like, well, never mind.
I'll just email you.
Yeah.
You go back to
I'll just send over the Pony Express to you. How about that?
All the technology in the world is only as useful as it is easy. Otherwise, you just roll back to that easy thing you knew how to do before. And I totally, I emailed you guys the agenda for today's meeting because I still haven't gotten my rear in gear and gotten an external team set up, which I promise is a priority for this week. Disney got in the way. But
it's okay, Jay. My carrier pigeon is on his way to you right now.
Yes.
With a nice meme for you.
So you could have faxed it to us.
Hold on. Wait, no, seriously. Don't you put that spinning head on the chat. We just closed on our refi for our house, And the first page, can you see that? The first page that's on the document is a fax cover sheet. I'm like, are you kidding me right now?
So wait, can I tell you something? I just refinanced my house too. And my mom, who's a real estate agent, she's like, fax is really secure. I'm like, listen,
No.
says the woman with an AOL email address. I'm like, stop. No, please. Don't even. Let's not even go there. I'm like, I'm not fighting, no, but I'm going to email this, which is great.
Yes.
But because I had to, because they weren't on Teams, which I yelled at them about. But anyway.
All right, so let me ask you a question. So, we have a tool that we've been working with the city of Richmond, RVA 311 has rolled out. It's a citizen engagement tool. It allows them to report potholes. It allows them to report street lights and such. Roxy, Lisa, what are you seeing in similar ways? Maybe tie it back to bots, maybe something else, but what are you seeing in similar ways in the municipal and state level that are really trying to advance citizen engagement through technology?
Roxy.
I think what's really popular at the moment So this is not 100% related to Microsoft, but just the industry.
Sure.
What's popular at the moment is this field of civic tech is booming at the moment right now. Like there are a ton of startups that are coming up that are doing constituent engagement or management in different ways. Like one example is Indiegov. Indiegov is a great company, sits on Zendesk, and basically what they end up doing is they make it easier for constituents to really report and engage with the elected official, and also they make it easy to manage. Right now, that process just happens through whether that's just a blanket email by you going to our website, you find somebody's email, and then you report something that way, or you just call the city directly. But there isn't really a process, or there isn't really a ton of innovation in that space today that's being adopted by the local governments, in the sense of, hey, let's get a bot stood up on our website so when people go to the website they can just kind of report something. Like people are still using like Google Forms for things of that sort, and you can understand how tedious that is. If I go to a form link, submit pothole in the crossing intersection, and how tedious that is on the back end to really just digest and then put that into like transferable information to get it to the right department to actually go check the pothole and fill it. It's just such a tedious process. So I don't think there's a ton of innovation that's happening there by the municipality's own initiative. Right. I think it's happening by these civic tech companies that are coming up out of nowhere, that are knocking at our front door saying, hey, your constituents are angry here. We have a list of complaints from next door. Figure it out or you're going to get lost in the sauce. So like, what do you want to do? And that's kind of what's happening.
Yep. I mean, it goes back to just the things we've already talked about. I feel every local government for 311 services should have the bot that says, when is my trash pickup day? What do I do if I have a bulky item?
Yes.
Again, we've said the potholes, but there's the pothole. And again, then give them the ability to say it's at the corner of 3rd and Elm. It's been out for 2 weeks. And then have the back end process go ahead and, we've talked about this, automate it to the even if it's the contractor that's responsible for going in to filling the asphalt into that pothole. And this was a little joke I wrote, but think about how long have we collectively waited in line at a DMV to get driver's registration? How cool would it be to be able to do all of that online and not wait? So again, these are, Roxy, I think you said it, it's the matter of consultant and partnerships with organizations that can help bring this to them and awareness. But 311, DMV, and then I'll go back to my favorite, internal to an organization, what? IT services, tier 0, tier 1. So, we're kind of full circle here for all good things that can be done.
But I will say we're missing the mark too. Like, just I don't want to say it's a company or a particular, but I think the way that it's being positioned is a little bit not necessarily in the right way. Like this is all smart cities play. Like that's essentially what it is. It's all interconnected into smart cities. It's a smart experience. But when we go in and we talk to these local governments, we just talk about collaboration and like a connected experience. That's not the right positioning. It's not about a connected experience, because that's only addressing one side of the picture, which is the internal side, which doesn't translate to the external side. And the external side is the most important. This is all about the movement to smart cities, which is a really big deal in the United States of America right now. You have Department of Transportation that has funding for it. You have FEMA that has funding for it. There are all these different agencies that are funding the idea and the push to smart cities, to have this experience, this technological experience that changes the way that people interact with collaboration and efficiency. So I think that if we can do a better job connecting those dots for whether that's municipalities, county governments, state governments, whatever that looks like, we can easily win this battle, because it's not necessarily about a particular provider. It's more so about the strategy and how we're approaching the problem. Because as a constituent, I can tell you how many times I've been frustrated calling, whether that's the local government, whether that was HUD, whether it was IRS. Like, I don't even want to call any of you. You matter of fact, maybe I'll never get my tax returns. It's okay. Because it means I don't have to call you. I'm good. Like, you know what I mean? That's how tedious that experience has been now. But I think we approach it from that idea, like I said, of smart cities, of this is really changing the experience of how it lands on the constituent, and just building up overall mental health and mental awareness in people and alleviating frustration. I think this is an easy battle to win.
So earlier you were mentioning how important it is for your local municipality to interact with state and federal government. So that brings up how do these organizations do that cross collaboration? I want to know. I am having a struggle in this area.
So in the answer, because I mean, I'm pretty sure Jay can give you the real. You want the real?
Yeah. So real quick, I'm actually going to pause there, Jamie. I don't know if you saw in the text. We're really low on time today.
Oh.
Okay. Dang it! I'll have to run those answers down myself.
It was really so. Listen, as a promise to you, as facilitating this regular call, we're going to do a follow up, and we will talk about cross agency collaboration in much more depth on the how, because that's huge. How do you do whitelists? What does it mean? How do you block places you don't want people? There's no real reason why my agency should be talking to Vivid Entertainment. I'm just saying it's not necessary. So. What do you need to, maybe I shouldn't have admitted I knew that. What do you need to know to be able to successfully do that? And we will do that as a homework item this month and follow up maybe next month.
Perfect.
Awesome.
Roxy, Lisa, thank you so much. This was awesome. Real quick, I want to just run down the remaining of the community events for April and May. Jeremy, you have a session coming up on April 13th. Is that right?
April 13th, I'm participating with the Power Addicts. We'll put a link in the chat, but they're one portion of their session. I get like 15, 20 minutes to talk about GCC challenges with Power Platform.
Okay. All right. And then Sarah, you talked about the M365 Gov user group that Nick Giard is running. They've got a session, I think, on April 19th.
Nope, that's me. Sorry,
that's yours.
No, that's Jeremy.
Yep.
Yeah.
So the Microsoft 365 for Government user group, we're going to have Sean Bugler come join us and talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly with Power Platform for Government.
Oh, cool.
Excellent. Very good follow-up on some of the conversation we had today. All right. Very good.
Cool.
The one that we had coming up is there's going to be a CMMC webinar in partnership with CoreTech.
Okay.
And that's the one that's going to have Katie Arrington, Ryan Bonner, Richard Wakeman, Scott Edwards, Jerry Leishman, and a couple of other prominent partners as well. So, and that is already on the blog, so be sure to sign up.
All right. And then April 20th, who had this? The Federal Collaboration Summit?
Me, yeah. So April 20th is going to be the FCS Federal Collaboration Summit. We're going to be doing one for state and local government too. I'll be sure to give you the links for that too, Jay, so that we can post in the chat.
Yes.
But we've got some for the Fed Collab Summit. We've got some really high up people talking. So I definitely I'm going to attend even the whole day because I'm very interested. There's also going to be a focus on cybersecurity here too. So. Cool. Definitely come because we've got some really high up people from Microsoft who are going to be talking at this conference. So it's all virtual, free, obviously.
Very cool. And then to end on an absolute low, because I don't actually remember what they are, April 22nd and May 13th, if you go to nova365.ms, we have 2 sessions coming up for our regular sessions. And I went and looked at it and I noticed we didn't post what they were. So I promise it'll be there now. Anyway, through the magic of technology, thank you guys, everybody, for joining us today. And for everyone who joined us in the chat and for your questions and clicking on the links, and let us know what you want to hear next month other than cross-agency collaboration. And yeah, anyone want to, I don't know, goodbye. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you. Thank you so very much.
Bye.
Bye.